President, the chair recognizes Dr. Jack Graham to make a nomination.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This afternoon, it's my pleasure, privilege to nominate Steve Dighton as first Vice President, Southern Baptist Convention. I've known Steve Dighton for over 40 years when he was a young layman and a young deacon in the First Baptist Church of Ada, Oklahoma, where my friend O.S. Hawkins was the pastor at that time. So Steve overcame his early training in that church, and he rose to become a pastor himself, and 2 churches in Oklahoma. And then in 1990, he and his wife Mary, along with about 100 other people, planted a church in suburban Kansas City, Lenexa. The Lenexa Baptist Church. He was a Sin City church before we had Sin City churches. He planted this church, and now over 25 years later, it's an incredible ministry story, mission story. Over 6,000 members, hundreds and hundreds have been reached for Christ at this wonderful church. They now have 6 locations, and his involvement in Southern Baptist life includes leadership in the state conventions there in Kansas and the Nebraska-Kansas State Convention, where he served as president. Steve served as vice president of the Pastors Conference of the convention. The church led the way in Southern Baptist Cooperative Program giving in their state for a number of years. But on a personal note, I can tell you that Steve Dighton is the real deal. He is a man whose love for Christ and love for the church is obvious. I've watched him overcome some personal crises and difficulties in his own life through personal illness, to stand and rise to the call that God has upon his life. And now, all these years later, he's serving Christ and serving Southern Baptist. He is a man of personal devotion. He shares the mission heart of our convention, our president, and the desire for prayer and spiritual awakening. He will be a great addition to our team leading Southern Baptist for this next year. I nominate Steve Dighton.
Thank you, Dr. Graham. Are there any other nominations for the office of First Vice President? There are none. Therefore, the chair would like to recognize the registration secretary to cast the ballot for the convention.
Thank you, Mr. President. Because there is only one nominee for the office of First Vice President, it is my privilege and honor to cast the ballot of the convention for Steve Dighton of Lenexa Baptist of Lenexa, Kansas, as First Vice President of the Southern Baptist Convention.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. At this time, we recognize the election of Steve Dighton, who will be serving as our first Vice President of the Southern Baptist Convention. Would you please give honor to this man of God that we have entrusted this great responsibility toward this year. Congratulations, Steve Dighton. At this time,